with James Akin and Meshach Washura right here in studio. Before the break, we were talking about cash flows and how you can prepare yourself. And Meshach, in fact, initially you went to the bank, you wanted to get a drip irrigation fixed, and they couldn't give you credit because of some of those challenges. You didn't have financial details, cash flow and whatnot, collateral. I mean, how much is an irrigation drip? Is it that expensive?
Okay, it's not that expensive. Let me give you an example of an acre. For example, if you want to have 1 acre fully installed with a drip system, the equipment will cost you around 150. That is including the labor. But then there is another cost of getting the water either from the source or from maybe your borehole or your dam. So you can go up to 300 per acre.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that you as a financier, you can look at that 1 acre and say, from if this guy does without this water, if we depend on the rain, I mean, with 150K we can solve this, and if he has market, we are able to solve that. And that brings me now to the question of assessment. You've talked about the issue of cash flows, yeah, and in the banking sector, you're talking about risk-based pricing of loans. Yeah. Are there any other factors that you are considering when assessing the credibility of small-scale farmers to receive credit?
Well, yes, the cash flows are important. Mm-hmm. And then and where we spoke about the technical assistance, it's just ensuring that the production will be managed well until from planting to harvesting. The inputs will be put because, we know in many instances where there's lack of cash, shortcuts are taken, maybe not the right levels of inputs are done, whether it is pest control that is not done to the correct level, etc. The output therefore becomes a deterioration of the quality of the produce at the end of the day. So all those need to be looked at, and most importantly also is an offtake or a marketplace for which that produce will be taken at the correct price, so that the farmer also has what they need for their own subsistence, but can also use it to generate some income and repay back the bank. Because what we've realized that without that offtake, many a time at the harvesting time when the prices fluctuate very heavily, you might find then there's a challenge. After they've gone through all that process of production till harvest, what is being received from it then is not sufficient. So for us, what's really important is the offtake, the proper price discovery. So the farmer is very aware of what the actual prices are and not too different from the farm gate prices. And once all that from the ecosystem, that's why it's important to have the off-taker also involved in the whole discussion. Then it makes it a lot more easier to then advance the financing to the farmer, and of course then work with mitigations around insurance, as we mentioned, in case of crop failure, technical expertise, sometimes even development partners who are happy to come and say, listen, we shall risk share with you in supporting this relatively new venture from the small-scale farmer until they develop to a level where they have enough information, historical data, they have their books in order, then they can work on their own, as it were. So for us, that will be critical in supporting that small holder farmer venture.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And today, I mean, it's 2022, we have many people starving due to lack of food in this country. Meshach, just looking at the potential that we have, yeah? You being an agronomist, I think this is very critical. Looking at the production capability, if we are to fund the small-scale farmer, proper input, deal with matters seasonality, so install drip irrigation, how much impact can we have on the state of food security in this country?
So one, when a farmer gets into production, immediately he gets into production, that farmer becomes food secure, because you cannot sell when you have not eaten. So that is one. The first point is, when you become a farmer, you are food secure. Secondly is that when you're food secure, your neighbor will also be food secure. Okay? That means there is no way that we have food in Nyeri and someone in Laikipia is dying, because there is food in Nyeri and we can be able to distribute that food at a cheap price. Thirdly is the rise of income. When you have foods, when you're producing in a small scale farmer, your income will go high, and therefore if there is need to go and buy food, you will be able to go and do what? And buy your food. Okay? So the other point is that when you have these small scale farmers, most of them will not produce like large scale farmers. You see, large scale farmers specialize. They will say, I'm producing certain hectares of wheat. For small scale farmers, they will produce a combination of food. So in terms of nutrition, you can be sure that this farmer will have protein, will have starch, will have everything. And this combination also avert the risk, because if cabbage fails, we have spinach. If this fails, we have this. Okay? So I want to say that when the farmer, the point is that if the farmer starts producing, the small scale farmer, he is food secure, and his neighbor is also food secure.
Definitely, that's very important.
Yeah.
And the money beats when it comes to food security. You know, right now we're talking, James, we're talking about, we have Hustler Fund, which the president is very keen to implement. We've seen a lot of interest from banking. There's that talk of credit. But oftentimes we don't see that link between credit and food security. So help us understand how in the bigger picture, also taking care of this finance bit will help us avert food insecurity.
Yeah. No, and thank you for that, because they're all correlated and you can't use one and leave out the others. When it comes to food security, to a point that was raised earlier on, is what can we do to make sure that there's production on and off season? And I think the core fundamentals of that are things like water supply, the markets, etc., that need to be put in place. So I think for me, what's extremely important is any support all of us can give to ensure that there's sufficient water. And I know this time the rains have been a challenge. The question becomes, can we build dams, boreholes, etc.? And as banks, can we finance the construction of those to ensure that there's reliable water supply to the farmers in the regions, and they can come together as cooperatives or in aggregation groups to actually do that. But from what's also important is around the storage capabilities and capacities that are available for farm produce. This perishable produce, so the question is, how does that get processed? For the ones that last longer, is there adequate storage facilities that can maintain the quality of the produce? And then what was introduced, which was a warehouse receipt financing system, to then help the farmer be able to always know that this is the value I have in the storage. If I need money or I'm waiting for a season prices to improve, I can trade off my warehouse receipt, and the holder of that document knows within that storage facility I've got X amount of quantity of certain produce available for me to take. That kind of helps reduce the need for all the sales to be done at harvest periods. But most importantly is also what you're seeing with the likes of NCPB, where the strategic reserve build-up is also done, so that the surplus stocks can also be bought, kept in storage, and the banks then have a big role to play in financing that whole process, such that in instances where there's drought or etc., there's sufficient strategic reserves that then can be used to feed back into the system as we wait for the next rainy season to come, etc., to actually support in the whole management of the whole food security issue that you've mentioned about. Because you mentioned your numbers, the impact on GDP is so immediate and so big that it's really important that all the stakeholders come together to see how do we solve for this, so that we do not have that kind of impact on GDP as a result of drought, which as a result then has trickled down into a food security challenge.
Definitely. And Mishek, when I travel this country, I mean, I've once in a while gone to the north, to Marsabit to visit a friend. I mean, vast lands, though dry, but I'm told very, very fertile soils. And this has been the discussion. How can we make sure that we are not relying on rain-fed agriculture? I know agronomists, you've seen this from 1964 till that. Some of them, to that, some of them have given up. But the question is, I mean, how difficult is it to convert some of these arid and semi-arid lands into productive land?
Well, as you say, is that the lands are fertile. So it means it is possible to produce on those lands. But there are certain limitations that, and this limitation seems like they are the basic for production, the basics. For example, you can have a very fertile land, but without water, you cannot produce anything. Okay? So the first thing is to ensure that as a government, as he has said, install the dams, because dams are reservoir for overflows during the rainy season, and these waters will be used in the dry periods. Then in the recent past, we have had technologies of use of polymers. We have polymers that farmers can use, and these particular polymers, when you plant your seed and you plant together with that polymer is like a sponge. It holds a lot of water, and this water can go a long way in saving the crop as it awaits the rain. So that is the second point, the issue of technology, the issue of dams. Then the third point is advising our farmers to go for resistant variety, the crop tolerant variety, the weather tolerant variety. Because if you go like the Ukambani zone, we have kundes, we have mangoes, and they are doing very well. So it means that a farmer in Machakos should not be producing like the farmer in Nyeri. Okay, there need to be specialization. Okay, if mangoes will do well in that area because of their tolerance to drought, let them do well in that area. Let the farmer in Nyeri do another crop. Then when it comes to solving the issue of hunger, they will exchange because this one will sell and this one will buy from the other.
Yes.
So the first point is the technology, the government coming in and having water reserves, and then farmers adopting weather tolerant crops and varieties.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, bankers, you have a nose for money. That I know. It's historic, yeah, and you can smell opportunities. But when it comes to this issue of food, yeah, I feel for the longest time we haven't been very keen on that. The issue of this arable land, some of the factors that is mentioned, is it something that is keen? Are we seeing more banks come on board? And even right now with this drive of ESG, going green, are we seeing more banks take interest of converting this, Asal region into food producing region?
Yes, it's an area that banks are very interested in, because to your point, there's opportunity, but in many of our banks, like for ourselves, the whole double profit, triple profit component about impacting lives and bringing possibilities to life is really important for us. And therefore, over and above the commercial bank we also have to be a force for good in society. And part of that is areas like you're saying, converting Asa land to be very, very productive from an agricultural perspective. And for us, that's an area that we are very, very keen to play an active role in. So in initiatives where, as was mentioned by Mishak, we can come together with partners. We've seen counties taking a lot of interest in what can we do to enable this land to be very, very productive. Together with partners and ourselves as banks, we are very, very keen to make sure that we then come in and play that role, work with acceptable agricultural practices. Climate is becoming important, therefore the crops that grow out of that help that whole agenda. And that ESG lens that you mentioned, which is extremely important, is that an initiative like that ticks all the boxes. It has environment, it has a massive social impact, and of course bringing these farmers together as groups and forming units that can be governed, and through that be part of a wider ecosystem through which then the banks can support the transformation from planting to marketplace then becomes extremely important for us. So very critical areas for us that we are very, very keen to participate in and play our active role in society in making that become a reality.
Definitely, very important. And as we come to the tail end of this discussion, now we've touched on food security and how we can finance that. Bottom line, now also there's the element of goodwill and willingness, yeah? And for our farmers, Meshach, for our farmers, in terms of positioning themselves, I think preparation, they say that that success happens when opportunity meets preparation, yeah? And now there is an opportunity for funding here, all right? Banks are waking up to that opportunity to fund small-scale farmers. How do farmers prepare themselves, even in the state that they are in now, to make sure that now when that convergence happens, there is success?
So one, when you, for them to be able, first of all, is to be able to group themselves into, as he has mentioned, into governable groups. For example, if we are doing onions, we must come up as a society, as a registered group, come access these funds, go buy the seeds, the inputs and everything. Because I understand his fear. There is no way he is going to give out cash just like that. He needs a governable group that he will go, sign this and this, sign this and this, and then see what they are doing. So that is one point. Farmers must come together and access these funds as a group. That is one. Individual farmers can also be able to access these funds, because if at all I have records, I have the cash flows, as he is saying, he can see my farm. It's almost 100% that I can produce. The only thing that I'm lacking is some few cash for just this season. That means as individual farmers, we should keep records of cash flow for purposes of our lenders.
All right.
And if that is not possible, let's come together, let's organize ourselves, and access these funds.
Definitely.
Yeah.
James, in less than 30 seconds, now there's a farmer who's watching right now. Can he walk into any ABSA branch and with those prerequisites, having proper cash flows, proper input, and they're managing their farms well? If they walk into ABSA right now, are they getting credit?
Absolutely. It's a key area we are very interested in. We have a whole team of agricultural experts and agronomists who are working for the bank, not subcontracted employees of the bank, to support us in ensuring that we can navigate this area to the satisfaction of the farmers. So with all those prerequisites that we've spoken about, we are ready for business with the agricultural sector.
Lovely.
And agribusiness.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been a very good discussion, I'm glad, you're very young, and
very
also
impressive.
a farmer. They say an average age of a farmer, I don't know, is 64. I think one of these days we'll have a proper discussion on matters farming. But thank you very much, James Akin from ABSA Group, and also we have Meshach Washira, who is an agronomist and a farmer, on matters financing food security. That's where we put a full stop on today's show. Thank you very much for watching Business Today. I'm Noel Boy. Up next we have Do Your KTN. Stay tuned. Thank you, gentlemen.